You know that specific silence that happens right before a car crash? The moment when the tires lose traction, the screech hasn't started yet, and physics just takes the wheel? That's what the air conditioning sounded like in Jason's office. It was a Friday afternoon, the kind of gray, lifeless New York Friday that makes you question every life choice that didn't involve moving to a goat farm in Vermont. I was sitting across from Jason, a 30-something CEO who wore sneakers that cost more than my first car and possessed a smile that didn't quite reach his dead, shark-like eyes. He was leaning back in his Herman Miller Aeron chair, a chair he didn't know how to adjust properly, so he always looked like a toddler trapped in a spacecraft, and tapping a Mont Blanc pen against his teeth. Click, 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 the sound of a time bomb that didn't know it was already ticking. Marjorie, he started, using that tone reserved for euthanizing family pets or explaining cryptocurrency to the elderly. You know, we're pivoting. We're moving toward a leaner, more agile methodology. We're trimming the fat to let the muscle breathe. I stared at him. I've been in this game long enough to know when I'm being hustled. If you enjoy stories about corporate sociopaths getting served a cold plate of karma, do me a favor and hit subscribe, maybe drop a like. It helps keeps the lights on while I navigate this absolute circus. Anyway, back to the execution. The board and I, well, mostly I because I'm steering this ship, we've been looking at the equity pool, Jason continued, his eyes darting to the ficus plant in the corner because he couldn't hold my gaze. And frankly, the legacy options. The ones my dad handed out like candy back in the day, they're clogging the cap table. They're dead weight, Marge, and we're a family here. Families make sacrifices for the greater good. Family, I repeated. The word tasted like battery acid. Exactly, he beamed, thinking he'd landed the plane. So we're restructuring. Your stock options, the advisory ones, they're being canceled, effective immediately. We're issuing new grants to the engineering team. The guys actually building the future, you know? But hey, we're keeping you on salary for the transition period. We're not monsters. He pushed a document toward me. It was a single page. Notice of equity forfeiture. It was printed on heavy bond paper, meant to look official, meant to look final. I looked at the paper, then I looked at Jason. He was sweating, just a little, right along the hairline where his hair plugs were fighting a losing battle against genetics. He expected me to cry, or scream, or throw the artisanal coaster sitting on his reclaimed wood desk. He was braced for the hysterical older woman routine. I gave you the best years of my life speech. He didn't know who I was. He saw Marjorie, the governance lady. The woman who sat in the back of meetings taking notes. The woman who quietly reminded people about compliance training and updated the employee handbook. He saw a fixture, like the water cooler or the printer that always jammed on tray 2. He didn't see the architect. I didn't pick up the pen. I didn't touch the paper. I just folded my hands in my lap, placing one thumb over the other, pressing down until the nail turned white. Is that all, Jason? I asked. My voice was steady, flat, the audio equivalent of a heart monitor line. He blinked, confused by the lack of drama. Yeah, I mean HR will send you the updated comp package, minus the equity. But Marge, really, thank you for being understanding. It's just business. Just business, I echoed. I stood up. My knees popped, a sound that seemed deafening in the glass box. I smoothed the skirt of my charcoal suit, a suit I bought 10 years ago when his father, Richard, begged me to come save his chaotic little startup from an SEC audit. I looked around the office. I looked at the whiteboard covered in buzzwords like synergy, disruption, and hypergrowth. I looked at the photo of Jason on a yacht, holding a magnum of champagne, looking like the poster child for unearned confidence. I'll get back to work then, I said. I walked out. I didn't slam the door. I closed it softly with a click that sounded like a lock engaging. As I walked back to my desk, a small cubicle tucked away near the server room, far from the open-plan collaboration zones where the 20-somethings threw frisbees and drank kombucha, I felt a strange sensation. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It was the cold, metallic taste of absolute clarity. Jason thought he had just cut off a withered limb. He thought he had cleared the capitalization table for his big, shiny acquisition. He thought he was the smartest man in the room because he spoke the loudest and used the most acronyms. He had no idea that he had just tried to evict the landlord. I sat down at my desk. I unlocked my computer. I opened a folder labeled Archive Do Not Delete, nested inside 3 other folders labeled TAX Receipts 2018. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to sue, not yet. I was going to wait, because Jason had forgotten the first rule of corporate governance. Read the bylaws, read the amendments. Read the fine print his father signed when the company was 3 days away from bankruptcy and couldn't make payroll. He wanted to play family? Fine, we could play family. We could play the part where the matriarch reminds the spoiled children exactly who owns the house. I stared at the screen, the blue light reflecting in my glasses. The cursor blinked. Let the games begin, I thought. And for the first time in years, I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a wolf watching a sheep lock itself inside the slaughterhouse. Understand why Jason's little power play was roughly as intelligent as sticking a fork into a toaster while standing in a bathtub, you have to go back. Back before the polished concrete floors and the espresso machines that cost more than a Honda Civic. Back to when this company was 5 people in a sublet basement in Queens that smelled like mildew and desperation. It was 12 years ago. Richard, the founder, Jason's dad, called me at 3:00 a.m. I was working at a mid-tier firm then, billing hours and dying slowly inside, one document review at a time. Marjorie, Richard had rasped, his voice sounding like gravel in a blender. I'm done. The SEC is sniffing around the series around. The investors are pulling term sheets. I can't pay the lawyers. I can't pay you. I can't pay anyone. I should have hung up. I should have gone back to sleep and let Richard's dream die the death it probably deserved. But Richard, he had this chaotic, magnetic energy. He was a mess, but he was a brilliant mess. I'm coming over, I said. When I got there, the office looked like a crime scene where the murder weapon was bureaucracy. Papers everywhere, unopened notices from the IRS. Richard was sitting on the floor, surrounded by empty takeout containers, looking like a man who had stared into the abyss and the abyss had handed him a tax bill. And there was Jason. He was 22 then, an intern. He was sitting in the corner playing Angry Birds on his phone, wearing oversized headphones, completely oblivious to the fact that his inheritance was currently swirling down the drain. He looked up at me, gave a vague nod, and went back to flinging digital birds at digital pigs. That was the dynamic. Richard panicked. Jason ignored, and I fixed. For 6 months, I didn't sleep. I lived on vending machine coffee and sheer spite. I rebuilt their corporate structure from the ground up. I standardized the contracts. I fought the auditors. I renegotiated debt with creditors who threatened to break kneecaps. I was the janitor of their legal mess, scrubbing the grime off the ledger until it shined. When the dust settled, the company was saved, but there was no money, literally zero liquidity. Richard sat me down on a folding chair. Marjorie, I can't pay your invoices. I have nothing. I know, Richard, I said. I was exhausted. My hair was a mess. I was wearing the same blouse I'd had on for 2 days. But I can give you this, he said. He slid a document across the table. It was a convertible advisory agreement, a weird Frankenstein's monster of a contract. It's shares, Richard explained, his eyes bloodshot. Advisory shares, Class B. But here's the kicker. I'm putting in a clause, a loyalty clause. If the company fails to pay dividends for 24 consecutive months, or if the board fails to meet for a fiscal year, these shares convert. Convert to what? I asked, squinting at the legalese. Voting stock, Richard whispered. Supervoting stock, 10-1 ratio. It's a poison pill, Marjorie. If I ever lose control or if the vultures come circling and stop paying us, this kicks in, you become the failsafe. I looked at Jason in the corner, still useless, still playing games. Then I looked at Richard. He was trusting me to be the keeper of the keys. Why me? I asked. Because you're the only one who actually reads the paperwork, Richard said. I signed it. He signed it. We notarized it right there with a stamp I kept in my purse. I filed it away. Not in the main digital repository. Richard was paranoid about hackers then, but in the physical Iron Mountain archives and a personal copy in my fireproof safe at home. Years passed. The company grew. Richard got old and tired. He stepped back into a chairman emeritus role, which basically meant he played golf and pretended not to notice his son turning the company into a tech bro frat house. Jason took over as CEO. Jason, who never read anything longer than a tweet. Jason, who treated me like the office furniture. Jason, who saw governance specialist on my door and assumed it meant glorified secretary. He didn't know about the clause. Why would he? He never dug into the pre-Series B historic filings. He only cared about the shiny new valuation metrics, but the clock had been ticking. Condition 1, unpaid dividends. The company hadn't paid a dividend, ever. They reinvested everything into growth hacking and Jason's expense account. That was 12 years of non-payment. Check. Condition 2, board inactivity. Jason hated board meetings. He thought they were stifling innovation. He had replaced formal board meetings with strategy retreats in Chalum and Aspen. Legally, those didn't count. There hadn't been a quorum-certified, minutes-recorded board meeting in 3 years. Check. The conversion had happened silently, automatically, 3 years ago. According to the piece of paper sitting in my safe, the paper yellowing slightly with age, the paper stained with a single drop of coffee from a night in 2012. I didn't just have stock options. I held 52.4% of the voting power of the entire company. And Jason? He was walking around strutting like a rooster, unaware that the fox was already sleeping in the henhouse, holding the deed to the farm. The fog of loyalty had cleared a long time ago for me. Now, all I saw were targets. Invisibility is a slow process. It doesn't happen overnight. It's like erosion. First, they stop inviting you to the strategy lunches. Then, you fall off the email threads for the high-level projects. Then, they move your desk. 6 months before Jason called me into his office to cancel my options, they moved me. I used to be next to the executive suite, strategic location. I could hear the hum of decisions being made. Then, one Monday morning, I came in to find my boxes packed. We're creating a wellness zone for the developers, the office manager. A 22-year-old named Kaylee who communicated primarily in emojis told me. So we moved you to the annex. It's quieter, better for whatever it is you do. The annex was a glorified storage closet near the server racks. It was cold. It hummed with the sound of fans cooling terabytes of data. It was where they put things they didn't want to look at, broken chairs, outdated promotional banners, and me. I became a ghost. I would walk down the hallway to get coffee. The good coffee machine was in the main kitchen, but I was unofficially banished to the Keurig in the basement, and people would look right through me. New hires didn't even know my name. One afternoon, a guy named Chad, because of course his name was Chad, stopped me near the elevator. He was wearing a vest over a t-shirt and holding a skateboard. He was the new VP of brand evangelism. "Hey," he said, snapping his fingers. "You're in HR, right? The toilet on the 4th floor is clogged. Someone tried to flush a salad." I stared at him. I was wearing a silk blouse and holding a binder containing the intricate details of our Delaware tax nexus. "I'm in governance, Chad," I said, my voice ice. Right, governance, HR, operations, same thing," he laughed, already looking at his phone. "Just get a plunger, yeah? It smells like failure in there." He walked away. I didn't get a plunger. I went back to my desk and added his name to my mental list. Chad, VP of Brand Evangelism, vest holder, future unemployable person. But the invisibility had a perk. When people think you're furniture, they talk in front of you. They leave things on the printer. They forget you have access to the shared drives because they assume you don't know how to use a computer. That's how I saw the numbers. Jason was ramping up for the sale, the big exit. Rumors were flying about a $400 million acquisition by a massive conglomerate, Omnicorp, not their real name, but close enough. To get that valuation, our EBITDA, earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, needed to look stellar. But it wasn't stellar. It was mediocre, so Jason was getting creative. I watched the files update in real time on the server. I saw the adjusted EBITDA spreadsheets. They were moving operational expenses into capital expenditures to artificially inflate profit. They were counting projected revenue as recognized revenue. It was classic, sloppy fraud. The kind of stuff that works for a quarter until the auditors actually open the hood. I sat in my cold corner by the servers, wrapped in a pashmina scarf, watching the digital trail of lies grow. "You're getting sloppy, Jason," I whispered to the screen. He was cutting corners on compliance. He was ignoring GDPR regulations. He was skipping the board approvals for major spending, approvals that technically needed my signature, though he thought he didn't need anyone's permission. Every day I saved a copy, every altered invoice, every sketchy email thread where he told the CFO to make the numbers work or I'll find someone who can. The cost of my invisibility was high. My pride was bruised. My professional identity was erased. I was the crazy lady in the basement to these people. But the return on investment, it was going to be astronomical. While they were playing ping pong and drinking nitro brew coffee upstairs, planning how to spend their millions, I was building a dossier. I was constructing a coffin, nail by nail, document by document. They thought I was obsolete. They didn't realize that in a company built on smoke and mirrors, the person who holds the flashlight is the most dangerous person in the world. I checked the time. 5:30 p.m. The office was getting loud, beer o'clock on Fridays. I could hear the music thumping through the floorboards. I packed my bag. I took my hard drive. I walked out past the reception desk. Kaylee waved without looking up. "Have a good weekend," she chirped. "I will," I said, and I meant it, because this weekend I was going to open the safe. My apartment on the Upper West Side is the antithesis of the startup office. It is quiet. It smells like beeswax and old paper. There are no beanbag chairs. There is no neon signage encouraging me to hustle harder. There is just order. That Friday night, after Jason had fired me from the equity pool, I didn't drink wine. I didn't cry into a pint of Ben & Jerry's. I made a pot of very strong black tea, put on my reading glasses, knelt before the floor safe in my closet. The dial spun with a heavy, satisfying click. Left to 32, right to 18, left to 04. The door swung open. Inside, stacked neatly next to my birth certificate and my grandmother's jewelry, was the file. The file. I carried it to my dining room table, spreading the documents out under the warm glow of the chandelier. It was like visiting old friends. Friends who were armed and dangerous. I bypassed the standard incorporation papers and went straight for the amended and restated shareholders agreement, dated 12 years ago. The paper was slightly yellowed. Richard's signature was a frantic scrawl in blue ink. My signature was small, precise, in black. I turned to page 14. Clause 7.2. I ran my finger over the text, reciting it like a prayer I had memorized a decade ago. In the event that the company fails to declare and pay dividends on any class of stock, for a period of 24 consecutive months. Or, Roman 2, the board of directors fails to convene a quorum-certified meeting for a period of 12 consecutive months. The advisory Class B shares held by the advisor Marjorie X shall automatically, and without further action by the board, convert into Class A supervoting shares at a ratio of 10:1. I grabbed a calculator. I didn't need it, but I wanted the satisfaction of the buttons clicking. Total outstanding shares, 10 million. Jason held 4,040%. Investors held 4,040%. Employee pool, the one Jason was trying to gut, 1,010%. My original grant, 1,010%. But the math changed when Clause 7.2 kicked in. My 1 million shares didn't just stay as 1 million. They carried the voting weight of 10 million. The total voting pool wasn't 10 million anymore. It was roughly 20 million votes, and I held 10 million of them. 10 million out of 19 million effective votes, 52.6%. I sat back in my chair, the tea cooling in the mug. Jason thought he had canceled my options. You can't cancel stock that has already vested, converted, and legally metamorphosed into a controlling interest. He could stop issuing future grants. He could fire me as an employee, but he couldn't fire me as the majority shareholder, not without a shareholder vote. And he couldn't win a shareholder vote because I was the vote. I looked at the date on the conversion clause. The trigger date was 3 years ago. For 3 years, I had been the silent owner of the company. I had let Jason play CEO. I had let him buy his Herman Miller chair. I had let him hire Chad the skateboarder. I had let him think he was a god. Why? Because loyalty is a hard habit to break. Because Richard was my friend and Jason was his son, and I kept hoping, foolishly, that Jason would grow up, that he would learn, that he would eventually respect the machinery that kept his engine running. But today he tried to erase me. He tried to steal the equity I had earned by bleeding for this company when he was still in diapers. He broke the social contract, so I was going to enforce the legal one. I pulled out a fresh legal pad. I picked up my pen. I started drafting, not a resignation letter. I was drafting a motion to intervene. I needed to time this perfectly. If I revealed my hand too early, Jason might try to scuttle the deal, burn the company down out of spite, or tie me up in litigation for years. He had the company credit card for legal fees I was paying out of pocket. I needed to wait until the moment of maximum leverage. The moment when backing out was impossible. The moment when the check was on the table and the pen was hovering. I looked at the calendar on my wall. The acquisition signing was scheduled for next Thursday. 6 days. 6 days to play the role of the defeated, compliant ex-employee. 6 days to let Jason dig his grave a little deeper. I took a sip of cold tea. It was bitter. I liked it. Tuesday, 2 days before the signing. Jason decided to host what he called a pre-victory board meeting. It wasn't a real board meeting, of course. Real board meetings require notice, agendas, and, crucially, me verifying the quorum. This was just a circle jerk in the conference room with the 3 lead VC investors who were about to cash out big time. I wasn't invited, obviously, but I was still technically employed for my transition period, and old habits die hard. Plus, the conference room has glass walls, and sound travels through the ventilation ducts remarkably well if you know where to stand in the copy room. But I didn't need the copy room. I walked right in. I was holding a tray of water bottles. It was humiliating, yes. A woman with a law degree and 15 years of governance experience playing waitress. But I needed to be in that room. I needed to hear the specific words they used. "Marge," Jason said, his voice dripping with faux magnanimity when he saw me. He was wearing a suit today, no sneakers. He looked almost professional if you ignored the nervous energy radiating off him like heat waves. "Just set those down, thanks." He turned back to the investors. 3 men in Patagonia vests and all-bird shoes, the uniform of capital. So Jason said, gesturing to the pitch deck on the screen. "The cap table is clean. We've scrubbed the legacy issues. The option pool is optimized for the acquisition. OmniCorp is ready to wire the funds Thursday morning. And the founder's stock?" one of the VCs asked. A guy named Brad. "Richard's stake? Dad's on board." Jason waved a hand dismissively. "He's in Florida. He just wants the check. He's not involved in ops anymore. I have his proxy." I thought as I set a water bottle down. Richard never gives proxies. He trusts no one in the... "Redundancy?" Brad asked, glancing briefly at me. He meant me. I was the redundancy. "Handled," Jason said, his voice dropping a decibel. "We offered a generous severance. The equity was retired. It's a non-issue. Retired." Like an old racehorse they shot behind the barn. I arranged the bottles perfectly straight. I checked the coasters. I was invisible. "Excellent," Brad said, leaning back, "because OmniCorp's legal team is brutal. If they find a single hair in the soup, they'll retrade the deal. They'll drop the valuation by 20% just for fun." "There are no hairs," Jason insisted, slamming his hand on the mahogany table. "We run a tight ship. We are transparent. We are ready." He picked up a bottle of sparkling water, the one I had just placed there. He raised it. "To the finish line," Jason said, "to the liquidity event the VCs chorused." They clinked plastic bottles. I stood by the door, holding the empty tray. My face was a mask of polite servitude. Inside, my brain was screaming. They were toasting to a crime. They were celebrating a heist where the getaway car had no engine. Jason looked at me. For a second, just a second. I saw a flicker of guilt, or maybe it was fear. Maybe he realized deep down in his lizard brain that it was too easy, that I had gone too quietly. "You can go, Marjorie," he said. "Enjoy the meeting, gentlemen," I said. I walked out. As I headed back to the annex, I felt a vibration in my pocket. It was a text from Richard. "Richard, Jason says you're leaving? What's going on?" I stopped in the hallway. I looked at the text. I could tell him now. I could blow it up right now, but Richard was old. If I told him over the text, he might have a heart attack, or worse, he might call Jason and scream at him, tipping our hand. I typed back just a restructuring. "Don't worry, Richard, I'm handling the paperwork. We'll see you Thursday." He replied, "I'll be there for the signing. Hate these things. Need you to look over the final docs for me." I smiled. "I'm already looking, Richard. I'm already looking." Pre-victory party was winding down upstairs. I could hear laughter. Let them laugh. Laughter makes you careless. Laughter makes you forget to check the basement. Wednesday, the day before the end of the world. The digital data room for a $400 million acquisition is a sacred space. It's a secure, encrypted server where the company bears its soul to the buyer. Every contract, every lawsuit, every employee agreement is uploaded for the buyer's lawyers to tear apart. I still had my admin credentials. Jason had instructed IT to revoke my access by Friday. He was sloppy. He should have done it Monday. I logged in from the annex. I watched the file uploads coming in from Jason's computer. Folder /cap table final /file, cap table v final clean xlsx. I downloaded it. I opened it. It was a work of fiction, a beautiful, terrifying lie. There it was, row 42, Marjorie X, shares 0. Status terminated /forfeited. He had actually done it. He hadn't just told me the options were canceled. He had deleted them from the official ledger presented to the buyer. This wasn't just shitty boss behavior anymore. This was federal securities fraud. This was go to jail, do not pass go territory. If OmniCorp bought the company based on this spreadsheet, and then I popped up later claiming 52% ownership, the lawsuit wouldn't just bankrupt the company. It would destroy Jason personally. It would destroy Richard's legacy. I stared at the spreadsheet. The cells were neatly formatted in Arial font. The lies looked so professional. My phone rang. It was a 212 number. OmniCorp's outside counsel, a firm known as the Wolfpack. I didn't answer. I let it go to voicemail. Then, a new notification popped up in the data room. Request from buyer counsel. Please provide original executed copies of all advisor agreements from 2010 to 2012. My breath hitched. They were digging. They were looking for the legacy paper. Jason uploaded a file 5 minutes later. File, advisor agreements consolidated PDF. I downloaded that too. I scrolled through it. He had included my original employment contract, but he had omitted the convertible advisory agreement, one with clause 7.2. He had cherry-picked the documents. He was actively concealing the controlling interest of the company. I leaned back in my chair. The hum of the servers sounded like a Gregorian chant. I had a choice. Option A, call the buyer's lawyers right now. Send them the missing document. Blow the deal before it gets to the table. OmniCorp walks away. The company's stock crashes. Jason gets fired, but the company and my potential payout burns to the ground. Option B, wait. Let Jason sign the representation that the data is accurate. Let him commit the fraud on paper in ink. Then intervene before the buyer countersigns. If I did option B, I wasn't just saving the company, I was taking it. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Richard? Marjorie?" His voice was crackly, distant. He sounded tired. "I'm at the airport, flying up for the signing tomorrow. Jason says it's a done deal." "Why do I feel like I'm walking into a trap?" "Because you are, Richard," I said softly. "What did he do?" The edge was back in his voice, the old Richard. "He erased me, Richard. He scrubbed the cap table. He's selling the company without disclosing the conversion clause." Silence on the line, then a heavy sigh that sounded like a tire deflating. "The idiot," Richard muttered. "The absolute, arrogance-blinded idiot. He thinks because he ignored the clause. Doesn't exist. He's going to sign the purchase agreement tomorrow, Richard. He's going to commit fraud." "Not if we're in the room," Richard said. "I need you to bring your copy," I said. "The one from your safe, just in case." "I have it," Richard said. "I never travel without my insurance policy." "Meet me in the lobby tomorrow," I said. 7:50 a.m. The signing is at 8 o'clock. "Marjorie?" "Yes, take him down, but save the company. I built that damn thing with my own hands." "I know," I said. "That's why I'm still here." I hung up. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from adrenaline. The trap was set. The bait was taken. Now we just had to wait for the snap. Thursday morning, the day of reckoning. The weather was appropriate, thunderstorms. The sky over Manhattan was the color of a bruised plum. I stood in the lobby of our building, wearing my best suit, a navy blue power suit that cost a month's rent. I wasn't the governance lady today. I wasn't the annex ghost. I was the majority shareholder. Richard walked through the revolving doors at 7:50 a.m. sharp. He looked older than the last time I'd seen him. He walked with a cane and his suit hung a little loose on his frame, but his eyes were still sharp. They were the eyes of a man who had stared down bankruptcy and won. "Marjorie," he nodded. "No hug. We weren't huggers. We were war buddies." "Richard." I nodded back. "You have the folio?" He patted a battered leather briefcase. "Right here." We took the elevator up. The silence was heavy. Does he know I'm coming with you? Richard asked. He thinks you're just here to smile for the photo op, I said. He thinks I'm packing my things. He never did understand the difference between price and value, Richard grunted. The elevator dinged at the penthouse floor. The glass doors slid open. The office had been transformed. Fresh flowers everywhere. Catering spread that could feed a small army. Champagne on ice. Jason was standing in the center of the room, adjusting his tie in the reflection of a window. When he saw Richard, he plastered on a smile. Dad, you made it. He rushed over, ignoring the cane, ignoring the stiffness in Richard's gait. Big day, biggest day. Then he saw me standing behind Richard. His smile faltered. Marjorie, I thought you were clearing out the annex today. I am, I said calmly. Just wanted to say goodbye to your father. Jason checked his Rolex. Okay, well, make it quick. The OmniCorp team is arriving in 10 minutes. We need the room clear of non-essentials, non-essentials. Richard gripped his cane tighter. I saw his knuckles turn white. He looked at his son, this boy he had raised, this boy he had handed a company to, and he saw the emptiness. Jason, Richard said, his voice low. Did you review the cap table with Marjorie? Dad, stop. Jason rolled his eyes. It's handled. The lawyers signed off. Stop micromanaging. This is my deal. I built this value. You polished the value, Richard corrected. You didn't build the foundation. Whatever, Jason waved a hand. Just sit in the conference room. Don't say anything weird to the buyers, okay? Let me do the talking. He turned his back on us. He turned his back on his father. He walked toward the conference room where the lawyers were setting up. Richard looked at me, a look of profound sadness. He's not ready, Richard whispered. No, I said, he's not. Do what you have to do, Richard said. Are you sure? I asked. He's your son, he is, Richard said, but the company is my life's work, and he's about to perjure himself and destroy it. We walked toward the conference room. The OmniCorp team was walking in from the other entrance. 6 lawyers in charcoal suits, 2 partners, serious men and women carrying thick binders. They looked like sharks entering a feeding frenzy. Jason greeted them with a high-five energy that was painfully out of place. Welcome, welcome. Let's make history, Jason chirped. I stood by the door. I waited. The players were seated. The stage was set. It was time to flip the table. The conference room table was a slab of marble that probably cost more than my college education. On one side, Jason, flanked by our nervous-looking general counsel, a guy named Tim who was 26 and clearly out of his depth, and Richard. On the other side, the wolf pack from OmniCorp. I stood in the back corner near the ficus tree. Jason shot me a glare that clearly said get out, but he couldn't make a scene in front of the buyers. He ignored me, hoping I would dissolve. The lead counsel for OmniCorp, a woman with steel gray hair and glasses that looked like they could cut glass, opened the main binder. Her name was Miss Sterling. All right, Miss Sterling said. Her voice was crisp. We've reviewed the final disclosures. We have the wire instructions queued. $400 million cash and stock deal. Jason was practically vibrating. He was already spending the money in his head. However, Miss Sterling paused. She pulled a single sheet of paper from her stack. We have one final housekeeping item regarding the capitalization table. Jason froze. Yes, it's clean. We sent the clean version. We ran a standard search against the Delaware corporate filings this morning, Miss Sterling said. Just a sanity check, and we found a discrepancy. She slid the paper across the marble table. There's a UCC filing and a historic shareholder agreement referenced in the 2012 audits that doesn't appear to be resolved in your current ledger. A Class B convertible instrument? Jason laughed. A nervous, high-pitched sound. Oh, that's ancient history. That was just some advisory thing for an old employee. It was canceled. Right, Tim? He kicked Tim under the table. Tim jumped. Yes, retired, forfeited. Miss Sterling looked over her glasses. You have the forfeiture agreement signed by the holder? We gave notice, Jason said. It's an at-will employment state. We canceled the options. Options are one thing, Miss Sterling said. Voting stock is another. If this instrument converted, it's not an option anymore, it's equity. And if you don't have a signed release, we have a problem. The room went deadly silent. The air conditioning hummed. Who is the holder? Miss Sterling asked. She looked at the document. Marjorie? Jason's face went pale. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. I took a step forward. My heels clicked on the hardwood floor. Click, click, click. Every head turned. That would be me, I said. Jason swiveled around in his chair. His eyes were wide, panicked. Marjorie? What are you doing? Get out. I ignored him. I walked straight to the table. I didn't look at Jason. I looked at Miss Sterling. I am Marjorie, I said, and I haven't signed a forfeiture agreement. In fact, I haven't signed anything. I placed my folio on the table. I opened it. This, I said, pointing to the document, is the original convertible advisory agreement. Here are the bank records showing 0 dividend payments for 12 years. And here are the affidavits swearing that no board meeting occurred between 2019 and 2022. I looked at Jason. Clause 7.2 triggered on January 1st, 2022, I said. My advisory shares converted to Class B supervoting stock. I turned back to Miss Sterling. I don't hold options, Miss Sterling. I hold 52.4% of the voting interest in this company. The silence in the room was absolute. You could hear a pin drop. You could hear Jason's career dying. That's bullshit, Jason shouted, standing up. She's a secretary. She's the governance lady. She doesn't own anything. Sit down, Jason, Richard said. His voice was quiet, but it commanded the room. Jason looked at his father. Dad, tell them. She's telling the truth, Richard said. She owns it, Jason. Always has. Miss Sterling looked from me to Jason to Richard, then she closed her binder. Well, she said, it appears the person sitting in the CEO's chair doesn't actually have the authority to sell this company. She looked at me, a look of professional respect. Marjorie, she said, are you the controlling shareholder? I am, I said. Then why are we talking to him? She asked, gesturing vaguely at Jason. I have no idea, I said. I pulled out the chair at the head of the table, the chair Jason usually sat in. Jason, I said, you're in my seat. Jason looked like he had been slapped. He looked around the room for allies. The VCs were staring at their phones, frantically texting their own lawyers. Tim, the general counsel, was trying to become one with his chair. Richard was staring straight ahead, his face unreadable. This is a coup, Jason sputtered. You can't just? This is my company. It was your playground, I corrected him. It's my company, legally. Technically and morally, I stood waiting. Jason, Richard said again, move. Jason stood up. He was shaking. He grabbed his portfolio. You'll hear from my lawyers. This is entrapment. This is corporate governance, I said. Goodbye, Jason. He stormed out. The heavy glass door swung shut behind him. The vibration rattled the water bottles. I sat down. The leather of the chair was still warm from him. I smoothed my skirt. I looked at the OmniCorp team. They were watching me like I was a bomb that had just diffused itself. Miss Sterling, I said, I apologize for the theatrics. The former management was confused about the equity structure. Clearly, Miss Sterling said. She looked amused. So where does this leave the deal? OmniCorp doesn't like surprises. No surprises, I said. I have reviewed the term sheet. The valuation is fair. The technology is sound. The only defect was the representation regarding the cap table. I slid a new document across the table. One I had drafted last night. This is a shareholder consent form. As the majority holder, I am ratifying the sale. I am approving the merger. Miss Sterling picked it up. She read it. And the proceeds, she asked. The distribution waterfall. The previous cap table allocated 40% to Jason, I said. That allocation is incorrect. My shares take precedence. I paused, however, I said. You're going to make one adjustment. The employee option pool, the one Jason tried to cancel, we're reinstating it out of my share. The engineers, the support staff, the people who actually built this place. They get their payout first. Richard looked at me. He smiled, a small, proud smile. And Jason? Miss Sterling asked. Jason remains a minority shareholder, I said. He will get his check, but he is removed from management, effective immediately. He is barred from the board of the new entity. Miss Sterling nodded. She pulled out a fountain pen. We can work with that, she said. For the next 4 hours, we redlined the contract. I didn't need Tim. I knew every clause, every liability, every buried skeleton in the company's history because I was the one who buried them. At 1:00 p.m., we signed. The wire transfer initiated. $400 million. My phone buzzed, a notification from the bank. I walked Richard to the elevator. You did good, Marge, he said. I just read the fine print, Richard, I said. He'll never forgive you, Richard said. He'll get over it in St. Tropez, I replied. With his 10% stake, he can buy a lot of therapy. I went back to the office. The annex seemed a million miles away. I walked into Jason's my office. I looked at the view of the Manhattan skyline. The rain had stopped. The sun was breaking through the gray clouds. I saw the notice of equity forfeiture still sitting on the desk where Jason had left it on Friday. I picked it up. I walked over to the shredder. It was gone. I sat down in the Herman Miller chair. I adjusted the lumbar support. It finally fit. I opened my email. I sent one message to the entire company. Subject, update regarding leadership and acquisition to all staff from Marjorie X interim CEO team. The acquisition is complete. Your jobs are safe. Your stock options are vested. We are a family here. And this time, Mom is in charge. Get back to work. I closed my laptop. I took a sip of Jason's lukewarm sparkling water. It tasted like victory. Real power doesn't announce itself. It simply asserts. Marjorie's quiet takeover of that acquisition was a masterclass in strategy. Never mistake someone's silence for weakness. True competence often holds the ultimate leverage. Appreciate you all for sticking through this one. See you in the next story.